All right. Well, my name is Sandi Craig, and I'm with Life of Worship, Pastor Sandi, and I welcome you here to our broadcast and to this Shabbat service, this encounter service. Now, I'm going to ask you this question. How many of you would have imagined the conditions of today a year ago or a year and a half ago?
No.
It seems hard to believe that in 1 year, our society has completely broken down and changed from what it was to something brand new, a new sort of animal. A year ago, we would not have imagined ourselves living this way in any form or fashion. Under this regime, yes, I did say regime, in the United States or in the world, and the world is literally falling lockstep, country by country, nation by nation, falling in lockstep with one another to this so-called new world order that they've been trying to instill all these years, and now it seems like it has the legs that it never has before. Would you guys agree with us?
Yep.
With
Yes.
me? But I want to say the China virus seems to sort of have been the first nail in the coffin, so to speak, of what we once knew. Because it caused people to completely transform who they were once and into something else. They completely transformed in what they once believed to now they believe, or at least they act upon, something totally different, no matter what they say. Guys, our nation, our neighborhoods, our families, our cities, our states, they've fallen for the lies. Would you agree? We look around us and everybody has fallen for the lies of man. Yep. Everyone. What would cause something like this to happen? I dare say it's much more than a virus.
It's a great deception.
It's a great deception. That's right. It's much more than a virus that can completely turn the world around. It's much more than a virus that would cause people to literally think differently and act differently than they once did. It's much more than a virus. Could it be that there's actually something out there that's associated with the China virus that could possibly have been released along with it or through it or by it? Or with the test? Hi, sweetheart. It even seems to affect leaders a lot more in areas because they're supposed to lead. Maybe we notice it. But leaders, the people that are supposed to be leading our congregations, the people that are supposed to be leading our cities, our states, our nations, they're not acting or behaving the way they once did. They're not standing up to what they once promised or what they once said. Their behavior seems to be foreign. Some are absconding and running. Some are becoming controlling. Even things like places. I'm just going to give you an example. Newsmax was a news source that people once relied on. Did you know it's been doing a 180 now on the election? Well, maybe there wasn't fraud. Really? With the amount of fraud that there was in the election, there's no way anybody, unless you're under some delusion, could say there wasn't fraud. We don't have an elected government. We have a regime, a totalitarian regime that took over and overthrew our government through insurrection. And what's amazing, that they're now outright saying we stole the election. We did it. That news source is actually now saying, yeah, we put the people in place and we did it.
More than one source.
Yeah, it's multiple sources now.
All we can say, it's more than a virus, folks. Something has been loosed. What could have been loosed? Well, something. I know we've been searching. We've been trying to open CERN up. It's because we want the other supernatural to come through. We want to see what's on the other side. We know that people actually take the drugs so they can go commune with the demons and get the secret knowledge. We also know that even during the oil spills back then, prophetically, the oil spilled out of the earth back however many years ago, but it was almost like the demonic was released as well. What has been loosed? What has come over the people? Are we under a strong delusion? Are we spellbound? Are we? Because it's more than a virus. Has something settled over our nation? Has something settled over our families? Has something settled over our congregations and over the nations of the world? Maybe. When we hear the news and what's going on, it's plain to see things are completely abnormal, or at least by what we once knew they're abnormal. They call it the new normal, but I don't like to use that phraseology very much because I don't think we need to adapt their language to try to continue to brainwash the people around us. But everything has happened, and all the people are under delusion. The world is under delusion. It's more than just a virus. And sometimes it seems to be too much. Oh, I can't handle it. There's too much. I don't want to hear the news anymore. I don't want to see what's going on. I can't deal with it because it's so negative. Well, yeah. We look around us and we see poverty. We see people struggling financially because of whatever has happened. We see people struggling in their families, and families divided, mask or no mask. Do we listen? Is it Biden and his government? Is it conservatives? Is it leftists? We see families that have been torn and divided, and more so than ever before. We see such injustice around us, from our normal everyday lives at work, to our cities, to our prisons, to our nation and our nations. There's such injustice, and I don't know about you, but injustice infuriates me. It's something I don't want to deal with. The unending stream of news, it pours in from the social media, from the television, as Misty says, as others have said, and the radio stations. Something is wrong with this world. How can it be? How do we respond? Because it seems like we're powerless to the forces that are all around us. It seems like there's nothing we can do. We try to speak up. We try to raise our voice. We try to vote. We try to be active, and yet it seems like it goes on deaf ears, like the people continue to just stare straight forward and say, I will do what my master says. I cannot hear you. And you may think that that's a little ridiculous, but it's not. I know I've spoken and text and Facebook message people on to be aware of even the vaccine that's out there. And I've some dear friends, some of you that other people here know from this congregation said, I want to hear it. Don't tell me I'm going to get it. They got shot 1. I don't want to hear it. I don't feel really well after shot 1. Well, I got shot 2. After, I don't want to hear it. And I say, I'm really, really sick. I can't believe how stupid I was. Well, by the way, guys, it's not a vaccine.
No.
It is not a vaccine.
Poison.
It is poison in there, and it has no vaccine properties. It's an operating system that's being implanted in you through the tests as well as the vaccine. Okay, so what do? How can we find peace? How can we find shalom when the world around us is under this delusion, under this curse, under this bewitched state? And all we see around us is chaos. All we see around us is injustice, and we stand powerless. But there's a principle found in Scripture that I want us to remember. It says that Yahweh will give his people over to their sins and to delusion. Do you guys know that verse? He will give you over to your own delusions. He will give you over to delusion. Wow, that sort of sums it up right there. Well, why does that happen? Because people don't know Yah. Just as Jonathan wrote in his newsletter, they know of Yah, but they don't know him. So they fall under delusion. They refuse to humble themselves before Yahweh. They refuse to follow the Torah, to follow his commands and do their own thing and justify it with whatever means necessary. In Romans 1, when it describes a spiritual and moral delusion of the people of the human race. And again, I have a hard time saying human race because we know to be human, according to Hebrew, you have to be following Torah. So of the beasts of the field that lie all around us, that's really a more appropriate phraseology. Because unless you follow Torah, you're not considered human according to the Hebrew in the word. Unless you follow his will and his ways. But yet, we still as a people reject Yahweh, reject his way, reject the idea that we need to take time and study out things, not only his word, but what's going on around us, so that we know the truth, because we're not lovers of the truth as a world and as a people. We're lovers of ourselves, and we'll let the men and the women of evil lead us right into the pit of hell. So what happens? We persist in sin and it gets worse. All of a sudden, we don't have any conscience anymore about what we're doing. And we go from one state to a worse state, given over to every sort of perversion and every kind of evil, and not even seeing it ourselves. Not even seeing it. We find in 2 Thessalonians 2, it says, then the lawless one will be revealed. Yeshua will slay him with the breath of his mouth and wipe him out with the appearance of his coming. The coming of the lawless one is connected to the activity of Hasatan with all power and signs and false wonders and every kind of wicked deception toward those who are perishing. They perish because they did not accept the love of the truth so as to be saved. For this reason, Yahweh sends them a powerful delusion to lead them to believe what is false, so that they may be judged. All those who did not believe the truth, but delighted in wickedness. That's the Tree of Life version, by the way. So the delusional beliefs of the people around us. 1 + 1 = 10. Light is dark and dark is light. And they believe it. They've been given over to delusion. God himself sends those unbelievers, those who truly aren't walking with him, a powerful delusion. Guys, that's powerful. So not only do we have Hasatan working, but Yahweh says he gives us over to the powerful delusion, the delusion of where we're going, what we want to do, and what we want to believe. I don't know about you, but to me, those are words that may make me fall on my face and say, Father, don't let my eyes be turned the wrong way. Let me stay in the center of your will so that I don't get led astray like the world. I look around and I see that there are very few people that will stand up for truth. Well, it's uncomfortable. I might be confronted. Well, everybody else is doing it. I'm going to go with the status quo. Well, I'm going to love my fellow man, so I'm going to do what they say. Really? So they say, go jump off a bridge. I will do it, master. That's really where we're at, isn't it?
Yes.
That's what right now, if they said go do this something and the world would normally say that would be harmful, I'm telling you, they would do it, and they would do it lockstep with one another and literally fall off. I know, what is it? It's the Divergent series. It's the second movie, Insurgent, I believe it is. What they do is they inserted a device. They shot him with a device, and the device had tentacles, which is what I pictured the vaccine as well as the fibers that are being put in the PCR test when the fibers go into your nose and begin to lock on. And what it did is they could manipulate it and cause them to do and say what they wanted them to do and say.
And see what they wanted to see.
And see, they would only see what they wanted them to see. And so, in one part of the movie, to try to manipulate and control, which we're going to talk about because manipulation and control is witchcraft. They would speak and manipulate however, and they literally, the people would walk off this high ledge and fall to their death. Not even blinking an eye. Well, that's what we have in our society right now. We reap what we sow. Meaning, the more we walk in error, the further we get into error. Because we don't even see the deception any longer. The more we walk in disobedience, the more we disobey. God actively gives his people over to the delusion of the place we desire to go. That's why you ask Yah for something or about something, and he keeps telling you no and no and no. And after the 15th, 20th time, he finally says, fine, I'll give you over to your delusion. Let's see where that leads you. I've done that before. It didn't lead me to a very pleasant place, and it took me a long time to get out of the mess that I created because I so thought, God, that still has to be you. I know it was you. This and this and this wouldn't happen if it wasn't you. So please, God, please. I begged. I pleaded. Please, please. Well, he finally gave me what I was begging for. It was one of the biggest mistakes of my life. Gave me over to my own delusion.
And it wasn't marry me.
It was not marrying Pastor John. Anyway, the delusion that he gives us is really judgment because we refuse to yield to his will. We refuse to walk follow his way. And that's what we're experiencing today. There's a phenomenon that the people are reaping what they've sown because they've rejected Yahweh. They've rejected his instructions. They've rejected love. They've rejected it. Well, what is delusion? Well, I was studying a whole bunch of words this week. Of course, delusion in the Greek is a word that I'm not saying because I can't. Yeah, I'm not even going there. But here's some of the definitions. It's suffering from delusions, mental symptoms and disorders, something that is falsely or delusively believed or propagated under the delusion that they will finish on schedule, or some delusions of grandeur. Psychologically, it's a persistent false psychotic belief regarding yourself or other people or objects outside of yourself that is maintained despite indisputable evidence to the contrary. Boy, that sounds familiar to me. And again, the act of tricking or deceiving someone, the state of being deluded. A strong delusion. It's no longer an individual truth, but it's a real influence of error upon the hearts of men and women and children. There's an inward work of error within them, and with it, they believe the lie. We look around our society right now, and even around people who call themselves believers, and they believe the lie. In Hebrew, the word is mahathalah. Mahathalah, H2048. It means a delusion, deceit, and illusions. Isaiah 30:10 says, which say to the seers, see not, and to the prophets, prophesy not unto us as right things. Speak unto us smooth things. Prophesy deceit. Prophesy delusion. Prophesy delusion. You know, I think that's why the media goes on to say things over and over and over and over again. They're prophesying delusion.
That's right.
And we take it in and we eat it. Galatians 3:1. Oh, foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you that you should not obey the truth, before whose eyes Yeshua Messiah has been evidently set forth, crucified among you. Guys, that's a big, powerful word. So now we have delusion and we have bewitched. So G940 Inu. There you go. Say that 10 times fast. It means to malign, that is by extension to fascinate, to bewitch, to put under a spell. It has a meaning also to give an evil eye to give an evil eye to. What does that actually mean? Does this have any relation or connection with the eye being mentioned by Yeshua in Matthew 6:22-23? It says, the light of the body is the eye. If therefore thy eye be single, the whole body shall be full of light. But if your eye be evil, the whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is the darkness? Remember, I said, oh, foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you? Who has bewitched you? Yahweh here is saying, Hasatan is putting you under a spell, and many have come under that spell. Paul is writing to the believers of Galatia, and he's saying, who's put you under that spell? Don't you believe anymore what you once believed? You say you are a mighty man or woman of God. What's happened? You're turning tail and running. What? Do you not believe what you said you believe? You said you trust in Yahweh, you trust in Jesus, you trust in God more than anything else, but I see none of that because you're turning tail and running and following a different God. Because if you truly trusted in Him, though the mountains fall and the valleys be raised up, you would not be moved. Though all around you, everyone's dying, and all around you, they threaten you, you would not be moved. Because we trust in our Yah. But that's not what we see. See, we see this concentrated, strategic, demonic release of something that has affected the individuals, the countries, the nations of the earth, the cities. It's affected them. Maybe in your own family, people are under this spell, this delusion, this bewitching, the witchcraft. Maybe, probably. If you look around us, the majority of our world is now doing something contrary to what they once did. And it's partly because of the fear. And through the fear, the spirit of fear, they fall under the delusion and so many other things. But these are evidences of a society that's coming, that's about to be destroyed, actually. It's evidences of our soon coming King making his way. Under a delusion, spellbound, to be held by sorcery, demonic sorcery. Are we fascinated? Are we under a spell? A spirit of sorcery. Because it's been released in a massive way. And you may say, how? Well, let me tell you, folks, when you play with fire, you're going to get burned. The enemy doesn't look for a giant opening and a sign that says, come in and invite me into your home and I will wreak havoc over your life. It just takes a little nothing. The door of sin opens the way, searching for him actively like the leaders of our world are doing, because they can get power and knowledge and they can manipulate and control the whole masses by their witchcraft. Witchcraft? Why are you saying witchcraft? Well, I want you to understand, how did Yahweh create this earth? How did he create the heavens? He spoke it. He sung it into existence. He's given us that authority for the words that we speak make the day the tomorrow that we might live in. The words that we speak affect our tomorrows. They affect our life around us and around the lives of others. Witchcraft uses magic, uses spells, uses spoken words to manipulate you. It uses chants and declarations and incantations and demonic devices to control you. Think of your television. Think of your radio. What are we doing? We're hearing that same stuff over and over till it becomes part of us and we believe it. We listen to our neighbors, we listen to our friends, we listen to everybody but God or people of faith. And we have fallen under that mind control. So not only does the television watch you, your telephone watch you, listen to you, so it manipulates how you even think and how you perceive reality. Because the enemy uses the spoken word, he just twists it. He counterfeits it so that he can gain his power over you and over those that we love. Witchcraft, manipulation. I want you to understand that witchcraft itself is evil, but it's all about power, and it's all about control, and it's about domination. What have we seen play out in politics as of late? Have we seen a power control? Have we seen manipulation? And have we seen domination? If you believe on the right, if you're conservative, then you are a terrorist. If you believe in God, then you should have your mind changed. You need to go to a camp so that we can recondition you to think differently. Boy, that doesn't talk about witchcraft, talk about a spell, talk about delusion, and talk about bewitching. I don't know what I would say, because it does. It all is coming together because we're under the curse of what we've sown. Well, how can there be witches around people of faith? Let me tell you, witchcraft and those who practice it. You don't have to look with the hook nose and the wart and stuff. I'm not talking that. There are people sent on assignment to congregations where they're moving in the Spirit.
That's right.
People that operate in darkness are often planted in churches to bring them, our congregations, so that they can literally destroy them from the inside out.
That's right.
So don't be deceived that you think because you're a man or woman of faith that everybody that sits around you is the same. Because it's not true. It's not true. The spoken word is powerful. The spoken word is powerful. And there's a world out there that's wanting to control us, to dominate us, to show their power over us, to manipulate us, and cause us to walk in a state of delusion and enchantment. Remember, how does the enemy walk around? The devil goes around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. I want to say, sometimes Satan and all his minions make themselves quite at home in the congregation. Feel pretty comfortable. because there's a lot of lies that stand around. I want us to look at the word curse, auror, in Hebrew. And I want you to understand that evil and evil spirits thrive in an atmosphere of sin, and our world around us is an atmosphere of sin. Would you guys agree or disagree with that? I need some people talking back with me. If you have to get up and dance a little, stay awake. I know it's late, it's dark outside, but there's a message I want you to hear for tonight to prepare for next week's message. I want you to understand that a curse, curses are real. In fact, he said in his word, there's blessing and there's curse. Now, there's some depth to them. We don't always understand them exactly the way they are meant, and sometimes both sides. There's a little lack of understanding on both sides of what curses are. But Yahweh said, if you don't obey Yahweh and carefully follow all his commands and decrees I'm giving you today, all these curses will come upon you and overtake you. Deuteronomy 28:15. Instead of recognizing that this crisis is a manufactured panic. What did I just say? This crisis is a manufactured panic with implications for personal freedom. The people of the world, I'm not going to call them sheeple because most of the world's not sheep, are they? They believe that this whole horrible China virus is lurking around every corner. And it's ready to kill you. Well, there are things out there ready to kill you, if you'll allow it. Yeah, there are. Believing a death threat makes people more malleable. It's going to hurt you if you don't fall. Okay, right. I'm going to fall in because of fear. I'm going to fall into whatever you say. No matter what I once believed, I'm going to turn my back on God. And they may say they haven't turned their back on God, but yes, they have. Now, I want us to delve into the Hebrew on curse. We're going to look at Jeremiah 17:5. If you have your word, you can turn there, Jeremiah 17:5. It says, "Thus saith Yahweh, cursed be the man that trusts in man and makes flesh his arm, and whose heart turns away from God." See, Jeremiah lived in the same time as Nahum. They were contemporaries with one another. But Jeremiah dealt with the sins of Judah and their future destruction, whereas Nahum dealt with the coming destruction of the nations. So Jeremiah was dealing specifically with Judah. Jeremiah focused on the fact that King Hosea was purging the nation of idolatry, but guess what? Idolatry still remained. How can you purge the nation of idolatry, but yet idolatry still remained? Jeremiah continued to prophesy for 23 years after the death of King Hosea, up until Babylonian captivity. But the people refused to believe that destruction was at hand. Jonathan's guy, can't call him friend because I don't know what his relationship was that I read in that letter when he warned him. I feel like God said we need to go to lunch. He refused to believe it. He refused to believe that possible destruction was at hand, and he's suffering the consequences for it. We live in a society where we refuse to believe that destruction is at hand. Surely they don't mean evil for me. Surely they mean something good for me. Surely they've created a vaccine that's going to help me. Surely they've given me tests that's going to help me. Surely the new regime in place in the United States is going to help. Surely they wouldn't mean harm for me. Ha! If you believe that, then you're under a delusion. Let me tell you.
Got a bridge in Arizona for you.
Got a bridge in Arizona. The people refused to believe that destruction was at hand. The people around us, guys, are refusing to believe that destruction is at hand. They looked around instead. They said, well, we're prosperous. We have a temple. We have our beliefs. Surely life can't get bad for us. Well, we have a soaring stock market. I'm talking before the last year. We have a soaring stock market. We have people praying for our president, which was really good because there were a lot of people that signed on and began to pray, and that's wonderful. We live in the United States. We live in the land of more than enough. Oh, we've got technology and comforts that nobody else has. Surely there wouldn't be destruction coming our way. Remember, the people of that time looked around at their own prosperity and said, there ain't no way anything bad's going to happen to us. We're all good here. And destruction came, and they were carried off in captivity. They were Yah's people, right? We're supposed to be Yah's people, right? He's got our backs, right? And he does. But let's talk about the word curse. Because in the Hebrew, arar carries the idea of being without protection. And this is in context, without God's protection. He's removed his hand. And it's really interesting when you look at the verse, thus saith Yahweh, cursed be the man. That word man there is gavar, Gavar, which means mighty man, leader, governmental, religious, and or family leader. So cursed be the mighty man, the leader, the family, the government. And the word trust there, thus saith Yahweh, cursed be the man that trust is batach, Batach, which means to weld yourself or something to someone. So it's really interesting that this curse is upon a mighty man or a leader who wields himself to Adam, a man of the earth, a physical human. Who are we supposed to connect with, folks? Exactly, Yahweh. But it says here, cursed be the man, the leader, that rely on man. How many people out there are relying on man and what man is saying? A lot, exactly. It's interesting that curse is upon somebody who's supposed to be strong, who's supposed to be a leader, who's supposed to be more than the average Joe. Well, you and I are supposed to be more than the average Joe because we carry Yahweh. Remember, you've become kings and priests if you've accepted him. You are supposed to go dispel darkness as you walk into a room. You are supposed to be the leader. You are supposed to cause men to hunger for Yeshua and to tell them about him. That's what we're supposed to be doing. So here we see this leader who clings to human reason, these people who cling to human reason and human power and human influence as their source, as their resource of life. Do we cling to man and man's systems and their payoffs and their ways as our source, or do we look to Yahweh above? Let me ask you that. Do we? Is that what our actions show? Or do we just give lip service and say, oh, I trust in Yahweh. Oh, I need the government to give me this. I need them to give me that. Oh, I'm walking in fear because what if I don't fall in line? If I don't fall in line, then I might lose this and this and this. Guys, that's fear, and that's not following him.
Yep.
Because when we follow man and we follow his influence, we forfeit our protection of Yah. It's like his hand that has been over us, protecting us and leading us and guiding us, all of a sudden is removed, and the hailstones come and they hit us hard like never before, because no longer is there protection there, because we're following man. We're following an anti-Messiah, a form of that, and a spirit of anti-Messiah, a spirit that's against Yahweh, a spirit that says, man is God, do what you want. There is no God. We forfeit the protection. When we continue to look at that verse, cursed be the man that trusts in man and makes his flesh. Okay, let's look at flesh. The word basar there is Hebrew, Basar, and it's actually in reference to the counsel of a man. Okay, let's put that together with the word arm, Zara, Zara, which refers to the primary source of nourishment and financial security. Thus, here's what it is when you put it together in this verse. This mighty man, a gavar who finds comfort in his power, influence, and the resources of humans, will have a heart that turns away from Yahweh. The leader, the government, that spiritual or even the business who clings to the wisdom and power of a man makes their counsel, their power, influence, his source of security, and will not only withdraw from God, but they will pervert the message of Yahweh. Has there been a perverted message coming out of congregations, of churches? Because they trusted in man. I think this pretty much sums it up right there, where their source of strength and power and who they rely on. The consequence of this trust in man will be that they will ultimately be without the power and the protection of Yahweh. Jonathan stands there in that prison. He may be one. He may be the only one, at least in that area. If he went along with the crowd and the influence and the ridicule, maybe, of those around him, including those that are in charge, like guards and wardens, he would be left to destruction. But he's willing to endure whatever he has to endure to follow Yahweh. Are we willing to lose everything that's comfortable to us on the outside to follow him? I don't know. It's a scary thought. Honestly, it is. Are we willing to give up everything we know to follow him? Are we willing to have the pressure all around us to conform to a society that's headed to hell, that keeps grounding us? Or are we going to say, no, I can't stand it any longer, I'm just going to give in? Would we fall under the spirit of delusion? Will we fall for the witchcraft? Will we become bewitched? See, on the surface, it looks like revival came to Judah in the land. Man, they're tearing down the idols. But that's not what was in their heart. It's not what happened. Secretly, they still paid tribute to the Queen of Heaven, Asherah, because they saw her as the source and security in their hard times. Secretly, we still pay homage to the government, homage to those things around us, because I think that's my real source. God's not my source. Well, let me tell you, folks, God is your source. Yahweh is your source. It's
right.
not your job. It's not the government.
Yep.
It's not anything else around you. It is the King of Kings and Yah of Yahs. It is him. He is the only source that is credible, that is reliable, that's true, and that will be there in the midst of everything.
Yep.
Everything else is a lie, and it's meant to destroy you. That's the truth.
The delusion.
So they were under the delusion that they could secretly hold fast to their idols. But destruction came. Captivity came because they refused to let go of their idols. They refused. They laid their babies on the arms, fiery arms of Molech, so that they can win and gain their prosperity and not be tied down, just as we do. Jeremiah described actually a fourfold judgment that would fall on the nation over a 20-year period. First, he said there would be economic collapse resulting in famine and starvation. Then he said next would come violence that would break out, forcing the people to hide in their homes. I want you to think about what's happening right now. Is there violence causing people to hide in their homes now? Is there the threat of a violent disease forcing people to hide in their homes? Then there would come a plague, third. And finally, the Babylonian army would take them captive. And finally, they would be held captive. Man, I've seen that. There's been an economic shift in the world and in our nation.
Yep.
People are hiding out, believing that that's going to keep them safe. And there has been a plague, so-called plague of ignorance. Yes, there's been something out there. I'm not saying that there isn't a real thing. It is real, but it's not like the fearmongers have put out there. They've created the delusion that it's this big monster, and it really wasn't and isn't.
Right.
And then they're taken captive. Our people, the people of the world, have been taken captive. They've been given over to their delusion. They've fallen under the spell of those who would try to harm them. But, everybody say but. Those who put their trust in Yahweh rather than their own abilities or that of the others moved in the power and the protection of Yah. That's where I want to walk. Can I get an amen to that?
Yeah.
Do you want to walk in the power and the protection of your king?
Yes.
And that included Jeremiah. Jeremiah, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, Daniel, they were placed in high regard. Why? Because they would not bow to the idols and they would not bow to man. And they were protected and even highly favored because they followed Yah. The nation maybe fell on hard times, but they survived and survived well. I'm not saying they still had the luxuries they once did. We may not have what we once had, but we still fall under his protection. So how can a man or woman of faith be changed? Let's talk about Elijah for a minute before we look at some more Hebrew. Let's talk about Elijah. Okay. Elijah was so close to Yahweh. He's an amazing prophet of the Tanakh, of the Old Testament. He was able to stop the heavens from rain. He was able to call down fire and consume even the water around the altar of sacrifice. He was able to have every prophet of Baal killed. But then there were words spoken, intimidating words. The enemy stepped forth and said, man, this guy's decimating my kingdom. He's doing irreparable damage to my kingdom. I've got to do something. This mighty man of God who wouldn't yield or to anything else, even out of the midst of massive victory, all of a sudden Jezebel comes along. She sent a messenger to Elijah saying, so let the gods do to me and more also, if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. And when he saw that, he arose and ran for his life and went to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there. You can't tell me he was discouraged. He just had the victories, guys. He had taken on bigger enemies and bigger things than before. There was an immediate shift in his mindset. This mighty man of Yahweh, there was a shift. Well, how could that be? He was leading. He was a leader among leaders. But something changed in his thoughts. She did it. Through manipulation and control, with her own power, all of a sudden, he's not thinking the same way he thought. It's as if he's under a spell, that he's no longer acting as he once acted. He's a leader who's no longer acting as he once acted. Remember, that's the definition of what we talked about delusion before. That mind control, that spell. I'm not talking about people saying, blah, 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 blah. I'm not doing that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the enemy has gotten up and he's seen how things were headed and he's come in and he's tried to change the lives around us, if not your life and my life too. Elijah is a mighty man of God, but he went and he hid out of a victory. What happened? See, people were in the United States and they've been praying, they've been believing. But the enemy said, no. I want not only the U.S., I want the world, because he has a plan of destruction. He has a plan so that he can stop worship from going forth, so that he can stop gathering going forth. So there's no longer iron that sharpens iron. There's no longer this feeling of unity of family, that there's strength in the family. How many of you, when you've been outside of church for a week, even just a week, outside of the congregation meeting, feel a shift in your own life?
Yep.
I do.
Yep.
I can tell. And the more I'm out, the harder it is to come back.
That's right.
Well, we have congregations that still are just now, and some not even beginning to meet. Because they are under the delusion and they don't understand that the enemy wants you separate. He wants you alone. He wants you off on your own, thinking it's good enough. I'll just do it online. Now, there are some that you have to gather online because there's no one around you, but that's not us.
Yeah.
That's not most of the world. There's a place to go and there's a place to feed and there's a place to come together, because the lion goes after those who have gone astray. The lion goes after those who are separated. So, and he messes with your mind. He puts those snake eggs in there and those spider webs, and we eat it and we believe it. Hook, line, and sinker, because there's no longer somebody come along. Elias come and say to me, Sandy, you need to stop thinking that way. That's not the word. Dan, got to stop thinking that way. That's not the word. And instead, the word says greater is he who is in you than he who is in the world. Let me remind you who you are. You've been bought with a price. You are blood bought, paid for by Messiah, our King Yeshua, and therefore you are his, and his enemies are your enemies, and your enemies are his. So fear not.
Yep.
But instead, the worshipers have left the building. They've been stifled. The worship isn't going up. They've been silenced.
Can't sing in church. Got to
But
wear a
you
mask.
can't meet. You can't sing. You can't discuss the word. You can't even come together. We need human touch.
Right.
We need human interaction.
You need to see
And
that
there's
expression.
strength when we come together. There's strength. The enemy wants to isolate us. That's exactly right. So we don't have and we lose all strength. We've got to understand that weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning.
Yes.
Joy comes in the morning. We cannot fall under the delusion that the world has fallen under. It's pervasive. This delusion is affecting lives, affecting policies, affecting livelihoods. Every thread and fabric of our society and of the world has been shifted and changed into something that's not recognizable, that no one would recognize a year ago. The people who call themselves people of faith are no longer recognizable. It's time that we be prepared for the victory. In fact, we just enforce the victory because we know the victory is Yeshua's.
That's right.
Though 1,000 are falling at our side and 10,000 at our right hand, it's not coming near us. It's not coming near us. Let's look at Moses. Moshe. You know, he had adversity from the very start. They wanted to abort him right after he was born by throwing him in the river. Because remember, abortion now can happen after you're born.
Up to 3 years.
Up to 3 years old.
Yes.
That is called murder, but remember, if you're under the delusion and society's telling you this thing over and over and over long enough, that you will begin to believe it. It's called murder, but let's rename it because we're under delusion. We'll be just as those people that walk off the ledge and just say, okay, you're right, I believe it. Because they are trying to form and reshape what we believe so that we are walking in such a spell, such deception, such a delusion, such a bewitchment, such under a curse that we can't tell. We don't even walk in morality or logic any longer. We don't even see it. So here's Moses. The enemies tried to kill him from the beginning. His life is miracle filled. God's been there. And all of a sudden he says, okay, Moshe, it's time that you go deliver my people. And all of a sudden the man who was raised in the palace, who had authority, well, I don't know. I can't speak. Well, who told you that? Who said you didn't have the ability? Was it the whispering lies of the enemy? Do you not know who I am? I'm the one in the burning bush. Hello? You're a miracle man. You should have that miracle mindset. The enemy hasn't been able to kill you all this time. Do you think he's going to be able to do it now? No. Guys, the enemy hasn't been able to kill you all this time. And as long as you're walking in him, he's not going to do it. Do not open the door to fear. Do not open the door to the mind control and the spell of the world. Don't ever say, Yahweh can't use you. Right where you're at, who you are. Understand and believe that's true. He can. He was supposed to lead the people out of Israel with, I believe, with his own voice. Now, it turned out differently. In Yah's plan, he already knows. So, when we give over ourselves to that delusion, just as these mighty men of God, we've let those snake eggs produce low self-esteem, produce another vision within our own lives. We no longer see what Yahweh wanted us to see. Who tells us these lies? Who's planting these thoughts and ideas in our heads? People are waking up, and they're feeling inept and inferior, inadequate, insecure. Who's put a spell on you? 1 Corinthians 1:27, but Yahweh has chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise, and Yah hath chosen the weak things of the world to confound the things which are mighty. Well, I don't feel like I have anything to offer right now. Well, that's great. That's exactly where you need to be because God can use you and build you up. He takes the foolish things, man, he's using me, you know? Well, let's look at Joseph. Joseph, his brothers hated him because he had a dream which was going to be about his destiny. It was about his destiny. Joseph could have given over and said, I quit. I've been put in a pit. I've been taken off into captivity. Then I was lied about and accused of raping a woman. What's the use? When I get on the outside, I'm going to have this label of, I'm accused rapist. It doesn't matter. When Yah has a plan for your life and you are walking in him and you are trusting in him, whatever the lies the enemy has put upon you, whatever your experiences have been in the past, it was just for the victory that's ahead, and Yahweh will lift you up, and the lies of the enemy will be silenced, and Yahweh will raise you up to where you called it to be. Restoration is better than it was before. That means if you were put in the pit, if you were put in the prison, expect the palace. Not a palace that we would think of like a castle, but expect great things ahead because he's going to raise you up.
Yes.
In this day and this hour, he said, come on, I need my people who are known by my name. And if you're walking around broken, busted, and saying, oh, it's me, he's not looking for you, because how are you ever going to cause other people to come into the kingdom of Yah? Well, I'm broken, I'm busted, and I'm just nothing right now. Well, you don't know what I've been through. You don't know what labels have been put on me. Do you know what they said about me? Who cares what man says about you? I care what Yah says about me, and that's it.
That's right.
Let's look at Gideon. Gideon, well, I've chosen you to be a leader. I want you to lead. Well, go in. What am I supposed to do? I'm the smallest. He gave his excuses. Because Yahweh said in Judges 6:14, he looked upon him, go in this thy might, and thou shalt save Israel from the hand of the Midianites. Have I not sent thee? Well, you just don't really understand who I am. My family is poor in Manasseh, and I'm the least in my father's house. Stop it with the excuses. When he tells you to go, you go. Even if the world has fallen into delusion, you are the one that's called to pull them out. Come on, people. Don't give a retort that says, I can't and I won't. David, on the other hand, let's look at David's life. David kills the bear. He kills the lion. He's this kid. He comes up and his brother's saying, who do you think you are? You have a small pasture. He's trying to diminish his brother. He's trying to sort of manipulate him, to control him so that he won't fulfill the destiny which Yahweh had called him to. But he doesn't care. He doesn't care that everybody else sees him as this little ruddy kid. He says, hey, who is this uncircumcised Philistine? Who is this people that call my Yah evil? That are calling evil good and good evil? Who are these people that are attacking truth? Who are they? David wasn't intimidated. He knew his Yahweh, and he praised him all the time. He lived a life of worship. He lived a life submitted to him, trusting in his king. He could care less about his size. I don't know how tall he was. All I know, he was his kid, and he saw himself as a giant among men because he knew who his source was, who his Savior was, who his king was, who his Yah was. Yep. That's David. He said, I can take that giant. I can take him. I've already killed the lion and the bear.
Come on.
But there's his brother. Who are you? Why are you even here? You have few sheep. You have this small flock. Trying to put a spell. Nope, he's not listening. 1 Samuel 17:41, and the Philistine came up and drew near unto David, and the man that bare the shield went before him. And when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth and ruddy and of fair countenance. See, disdaining means he evaluated him. He's a nobody. You're nobody. That's what you think. That's what you think. And the Philistine said unto David, am I a dog that you come to me with staves? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. Words that were meant to intimidate David made him stand even more resolute. You are not going to control me with your manipulation. You are not going to control me with your witchcraft. You are not going to control me with your words of delusion.
Yep.
You are not going to pass a curse on me. You're not going to cause me to be spellbound. No. You think you're going to neutralize me? Well, I come in the name of my Yahweh. Your reign, your terrorism is over. See, don't you allow anybody to tell you who you are. You identify who you are because you know who he is. You know who he is. So it doesn't matter that the world is calling and crying out one way and saying one thing or doing another, and they're all falling in line to the pit of hell. You take what he's given you, your word and your sword, and you wield it. You say, my God is the answer, and live a life so out loud that people will be so drawn to you that they will be taken out of their prisons of control and manipulation. They will be literally ripped out of those places and drawn to the kingdom of light so that Yah's kingdom advances and not the enemy's, because the word says we are to bring dominion. We to advance his kingdom. We keep retreating, and it's time we begin to advance Even in the midst of this crisis, even in the midst of a world that looks different than it once did, the Lord says He's going to shake everything that can be shaken. Well, He's been shaken, and we've been shaken for a while. But we've got to remember that He has the victory. Remember, we don't need to be soldiers on the battlefield where we have to have smelling salts. Oh, I'm going into battle. I've got my sword and my smelling salts because somebody might pass out or faint because they're a little bit scared. How many soldiers carry smelling salts to the battlefield? Well, I might need to revive somebody. Well, come on, people. You're not supposed to be that kind of soldier. Remember, He is our strength. We're in a time of war, folks. It's kingdom against kingdom. We're in a time of war. And when war breaks out, Yahweh wants a man and a woman who He can trust, who will stand for His purposes, who will not be moved, who will not faint. We should have our sword ready for battle. It's time to be strong men and women of God. We need to be as David and respond to the enemy the same way. This day will Yahweh deliver you unto my hand, and I will smite thee, and I will take thy head from thee. I want you to remember a message I spoke several months ago. Remember, head, always in Hebrew, it's source. Don't think of a head as a head. I will take your head off. I will take your physical head off, but the source that's manipulating, controlling you will be gone in Yeshua's name. We don't need smelling salts on the battlefield, folks. We need to understand who we are in the midst of the chaos around us. Yep. No, you're not going to put a curse on me. No, my source is not man. No, I will stand up for my King and my Yah, for there is no other. Remember who you are and whose you are, and use the Torah, use His instruction as a mirror to measure. Do you measure when you look at it? When we get together and study each week, it measures where we stand and who we are and maybe where our deficits are. So I'm telling you folks right now, the world outside looks far different. It has been cast under a spell. It's under a curse, under their own delusion, given over to their own sin. Even those they call themselves believers. But no longer will you be. Not that you are, but you will come out of that place, and you, from this day, we need to walk in understanding of all that He's equipped us with. Use our weapons for His glory. And we need to stand out because you are aliens and strangers in this world. We can no longer be moved by what the world says, nor can we trust in men, for we trust in Him. We trust in Him and Him alone, for He is our source. He is our head. He is our source. Therefore, we will look to Him and Him alone, and we will not faint on the battlefield, but yet we will advance, and we will cause the enemy's kingdom to be decimated, because my King is greater than their king. Amen? Y'all should be shouting on that. My King is greater than their king, and my King is victorious, and my King wins.
Yes.
I just enforce the victory, walking in truth. Hallelujah.